Good day and welcome to our Global News Podcast for Monday, April 21st, 2025. We bring you the most significant stories from around the world today, covering major developments across Southeast Asia, South Asia, Africa, Latin America, Russia, and China. Today's headlines are dominated by the death of Pope Francis, the first Latin American pontiff, who passed away at the age of 88. We'll also explore regional tensions in Asia, diplomatic developments in Russia, and much more. Our top story today, Pope Francis, the spiritual leader of 1.4 billion Catholics worldwide, died this morning at 7:35 a.m. local time at his residence in the Vatican's Casa Santa Marta. His death came just one day after he made a brief appearance at Easter Sunday services where he appeared frail but determined to be present. Born Jorge Mario Bergoglio in Buenos Aires, Argentina, Francis was the first Jesuit and first Latin American to lead the Catholic Church. Throughout his 12-year pontificate, he was known as the Pope of the Peripheries, consistently advocating for peace, the poor, and environmental causes. Cardinal Kevin Farrell announced the pontiff's death, which followed a 38-day hospitalization for double pneumonia where he almost died twice. Francis had suffered various ailments during his papacy, including knee problems that forced him to use a wheelchair. His death sets in motion centuries-old traditions that will culminate in a conclave of cardinals to choose his successor. Breaking with tradition, Francis chose to be buried not in St. Peter's Basilica, but in Rome's Santa Maria Maggiore Basilica, becoming the first pope in more than 100 years to be laid to rest outside the Vatican. World leaders have begun paying tribute, with French President Emmanuel Macron saying Francis had always been on the side of the most vulnerable and the most fragile, and Irish Prime Minister Michael Martin, noting his unwavering commitment to the principles of compassion, peace, and human dignity. In Southeast Asia, geopolitical tensions continue as Philippine provinces find themselves caught between competing influences. A recent study reveals that U.S. military hosts Cagayan and Palawan hold opposing views of Beijing due to their economic engagements with China, highlighting the complex dynamics in the region. Meanwhile, approximately 17,000 troops are participating in the full battle Balikatan military exercises between the Philippines and the United States. These drills, some taking place near Taiwan, include combined air and missile defense simulations for the first time, signaling enhanced military cooperation amid regional tensions. Singapore's Deputy Prime Minister Gan Kim Yong has highlighted the Johor-Singapore Special Economic Zone as offering new opportunities amid U.S.-China trade tensions, presenting it as a way for businesses to strengthen supply chains despite global uncertainties. Turning to South Asia, tensions are escalating between India and Bangladesh after New Delhi revoked transshipment access for Bangladesh exports. This decision ends an arrangement that allowed Bangladesh to send cargo via Indian airports, creating a significant trade dispute between the neighboring nations. In technology news, billionaire Elon Musk has announced plans to visit India following discussions with Prime Minister Narendra Modi. The two reportedly discussed potential collaboration in technology and innovation, which could lead to significant new tech partnerships for India. Pakistan continues to face challenges with China's Belt and Road Initiative, with reports indicating that $50 billion in projects have stalled as Islamabad and Beijing discuss the next phase of the China-Pakistan Economic Corridor. In Africa, shifting trade winds are affecting economies across the continent as global tariffs, reforms, and regional tensions reshape economic relationships. African nations are working on regional economic integration efforts amid these challenges. The Democratic Republic of Congo has responded to controversial claims by former U.S. President Donald Trump about Congolese immigration. Citizens and officials in Kinshasa have expressed frustration over what they see as misleading statements about migration patterns. In Ethiopia, Easter celebrations were marked by calls for peace and reconciliation amid ongoing regional conflicts. Religious leaders used the holiday to emphasize the need for dialogue and an end to violence that has affected parts of the country. Humanitarian efforts continue in Libya, where Sudanese refugee children are finding hope through educational initiatives. These programs highlight the ongoing refugee crisis in North Africa and efforts to provide stability for displaced populations. In Latin America, the death of Pope Francis has particular resonance in his native Argentina. As the first Latin American pontiff, his passing has triggered extensive coverage of his legacy and Argentina's complex relationship with their native son. Political tensions continue in Argentina, where President Javier Milei has intensified his criticism of journalists, referring to them as hitmen in a recent online statement. This reflects growing friction between the government and media in the country, Cultural shifts are also evident in Argentina, with a recent study showing that 3 in 10 Argentines now have tattoos, with women increasingly participating in what was traditionally a male-dominated practice. This trend reflects evolving cultural attitudes across Latin America. From Russia, President Vladimir Putin has officially ratified a strategic partnership agreement with Iran, strengthening ties between the two nations that are both under Western sanctions. This development signals closer cooperation on economic, political, and potentially military matters. The Kremlin has welcomed recent U.S. statements regarding Ukraine's prospects for NATO membership. Spokesperson Dmitry Peskov commented positively on assertions that Ukraine joining the alliance is not currently feasible, suggesting potential diplomatic positioning on this contentious issue. Russian military operations in Ukraine have reportedly resumed following the expiration of a temporary Easter truce. TASS news agency describes this as the main story in its coverage, indicating the ongoing significance of the conflict in Russian media. Russia also continues diplomatic efforts regarding the Middle East conflict, with senior diplomats working to secure the release of hostages held in Gaza, demonstrating Russia's continued diplomatic engagement in the region. In China, the Ministry of Commerce has issued a strong statement opposing any trade deals made at the expense of Chinese interests. This comes in response to reports that the U.S. plans to use ongoing tariff negotiations to pressure China, highlighting persistent trade tensions between the world's 2 largest economies. Beijing has announced sanctions on several U.S. congresspeople, officials, and NGO heads over what it describes as egregious actions related to Hong Kong issues. These retaliatory measures follow U.S. sanctions on Chinese officials, reflecting deteriorating U.S.-China relations. On a more positive note, China's Antarctic expedition has yielded significant scientific results, including improvements to polar space debris monitoring systems. These advancements demonstrate China's growing presence and capabilities in global scientific research. China also hosted its first humanoid robot half-marathon in Beijing, showcasing technological advancements in robotics and artificial intelligence. The Global Times described the event as providing insights that go beyond medals, highlighting China's progress in cutting-edge technology. That concludes our Global News Roundup for Monday, April 21, 2025. From the death of Pope Francis to geopolitical tensions in Asia and diplomatic developments in Russia and China, we've covered the most significant stories from around the world today. Thank you for listening to our Global News Podcast. Please subscribe and hit the like button as we endeavor to bring you a daily global roundup on the most important events happening around the world. We wish you a good day and invite you to join us again tomorrow for more international news and analysis.